mouse. No audio, and you're not getting any audio either because I haven't set up that to come through my headphones.
So the full stream, guys, is on Stephen Ryan podcast on YouTube. If you look up Cider and Pour, it'll come up as well. Today we're going to be discussing. Hope that's working. You can hear me, right?
Yeah. I can hear you, man. And my audience on both YouTube and TikTok can also see you as well.
So today we're going to be. Actually, I'll let you do your whole thing. I was trying to tell the TikTok audience what we're doing, but
You're fine. Yeah. So basically, well, yeah, I mean, like, we had talked before, and it was a very good conversation and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, like, it was just super interesting. It was super civil the last time, and we didn't agree on hardly anything, but fuck it, we had a nice conversation, and that's what I think the main thing is, right? So yeah, now I know why the TikTok stream looks weird. It's because I'm fucking, if I do. Now the TikTok stream looks good. Okay. I can't see my YouTube comments, but fuck it, it's fine. It looks good on TikTok now. So, anyway, I am a professional streamer of 12 years. You wouldn't tell, but there we go. Seriously, dude, honestly, it's like a running joke in some of my kind of, like, people who have been subscribed to me on YouTube for years. It's a running joke in like my kind of community. It is not one of my streams unless there's at least one technical issue. Like, it just always happens. But look, anyway, fuck it, we're here, we're having a good conversation. It's all good. So yeah, I mean, like, I had kind of given you a couple of because I'm not going to fucking jump straight into it, because you got married recently. Congratulations, my dude. Absolutely congratulations. Genuinely chuffed for you, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, look, we might not agree on too much or anything else, but fuck, genuinely, absolutely, that's just, yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. So,
thank you so much, man.
Not a bother. Yeah, well, look, in the spirit of it, we will kind of jump in. So I had given you a couple of kind of topics, we'll say, that we were like maybe kind of want to talk about and stuff like that. So, like, do you have one that you want to, like, start us off with, or?
I'd let you, as the host, you can kind of go ahead. Like, I looked at a couple of the topics, and to be honest, I think I've kind of fallen out with American politics a little bit. So it will be an interesting chat.
Okay. Yeah, look, it's, I mean, it's definitely fucking wild. I didn't know, honestly, whether you were going to kind of be approving, shall we say, of the current administration in the US, but there we go. Yeah, what was that? There was another one then, I mean, like, literally, like, right at the very, 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 very start of it, of the administration. There was, like, and this was definitely one of the topics that I had said to you as well. There was, like, a mega viral moment when the was she a bishop, or was she just like a priest, or? Because I forget her actual title. It was a while ago. Let's just be fair. It's the 20th of February. It was a month ago. Let's just be.
I think she was pretending to be a bishop. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll have some talks about that, but whenever. Yeah. So. But yeah, I mean, like, it went super viral. Everybody in YouTube and TikTok live chat, if you think that you're thinking of the clip that you think I'm talking about, it's that one, right? It's when they were in the church. I think it was like just like the day after Trump was inaugurated, that he went to this church, and it was him and JD Vance, and I think Melania was there, and JD's wife, I don't know her name, I'm sure she's a lovely woman, but they were all there, basically, and it was this bishop that got up and was kind of talking about all of these sorts of but yeah, she just gave like a sermon, but then it was also kind of like an appeal to the incoming uh Trump administration. So I personally loved it, and as someone who is an atheist and who has been an atheist for the last 13 years since I was 16, I mean, like, I'm not going to say that like it convinced me to become religious again, but I described it at the time as arguably the most positive view or interpretation or view of Christianity that I have seen in a very, very, very long time. Because, you know, I mean, like, from like a biblical perspective, I don't think that nothing that she said was anti-Christian, like, was anti-biblical. So I mean, I had seen that you had done a video on it where like you were against it, shall we say. So do you want to kind of say some of the things that you had, say, like kind of like issues with or something like that, and we'll kind of go from there, I guess.
Yeah, so I think really my issue mainly is to do with her impersonation um, as someone who's carrying out holy orders, right? Like acting as a bishop. It's actually not really with her message. My message has really started. I mean, my thought process on immigration has really started to change. You know, like when I kind of seen Trump was stripping people from their homes, you know, I was thinking to myself, this isn't what I wanted, right? I wanted reinforcement of the borders and this type of thing, and I think that's okay, right? But her plea to Trump to show mercy is very Christian, right? We see that as Christians, when someone, let's say, for example, takes something that belongs to you, don't demand it back because it wasn't even yours in the first place, right? The principle we have to really follow is love your neighbor as yourself. And I think if Trump wants to go and say he's a Christian, and if he had fled to a country in a time of need, he wouldn't want to be kicked out of it either, right? So that was her plea, I think, was really to just for him to show mercy. But my problem with it is that as a like she's not a bishop. She's not a real ordained priest or bishop. Women cannot carry out holy orders, historically and biblically. I have no problem with, like, I'm not like a misogynist in that sense. A lot of people think like when a Christian says this, they're a misogynist about it. Like, there's specific roles in the church. Like, if you're going to be a Christian, abide by what you're supposed to do as a Christian. You know what I mean? So that's really my issue, is that she comes along and she's pretending to be a priest or a bishop. Now, I actually don't know much about her. I don't know if she is like extremely liberal, right? We see that a lot in like Anglican churches in America, like these
Mm-hmm.
extreme liberal churches. They don't care about the Bible. Or she could be a conservative Anglican that just is carrying out ordination as a bishop or a priest. But I still would disagree with her that women cannot be priests, pastors, anything like that. So that's really where my issue is.
Yeah, okay. Hmm. So, right, but I mean, like, did you kind of disagree with like the words of her message, or it was literally just the fact that like it was a woman that was on the pulpit, kind of giving that message to begin with?
Yeah, it's just a woman giving that message to begin with, really. And I don't know, like, it's kind of like a little bit. I'm trying to think. Is it inappropriate what she done? You know, um, I can't really even remember now what she fully said. Do you remember? Like, can you quote what she said fully?
I mean, I can kind of quote bits. Obviously, look at again. It was a month ago, so you know, my kind of memory of it is a little bit hazy. To be fair, I probably should have looked at it at least in the last kind of couple of days, just to kind of get like a better kind of understanding, or, you know, to be able to directly quote. But I mean, like, what she had said essentially was that she wanted people, or she wanted the Trump team to be respectful of immigrants, and to not kind of ostracize people of marginalized groups such as LGBTQ, or just kind of immigrants in general. I mean, like, she had kind of done, like, she had kind of said a lot of those sorts of things. And look at, with LGBTQ specifically, I'm not going to say biblically you have a better argument there, but I mean, objectively speaking, with immigrants, I mean, the biblical argument, I mean, is crystal clear. Like, you just like almost like you just simply just don't have an argument there. That, because the Bible teaches us that, you know, Jesus told people to welcome the foreigner, and to treat foreigners as, you know, as you ought be treated. So, you know, it's, and then I mean, like, he didn't just say that about foreigners. He like, he had just said that about, like, everybody. Treat your neighbor, treat the people around you as you would be treated. So I mean, like, you could kind of say that for LGBTQ members then as well. But look, it's
that's the part where I'd probably be like, I don't know, like, I'm not saying mistreat LGBTQ people, but I was just checking there to see what she said. She's talked about, you know, letting transgender people get their operations and these type of things. So maybe she is leaning more liberal in the sense that she supports LGBTQ. That's where I now have an issue. You know, standing in the place of someone who's a representation of Christ, of course I'm going to call you a blasphemer. You know what I mean? That's where there's an issue. The immigration thing, I most likely agree with her. But then to go and, you know, like, you can stand there and say, don't persecute LGBTQ people. That's perfectly fine. Jesus would agree with that. But when it comes to promoting the ideology of transgenderism and LGBTQ identity, then I would say no, right? I would probably agree with, like, I don't know if you watch, like, Michael Knowles and stuff, like, his kind of...
I am familiar with Michael Knowles. Yes, you probably won't like my opinion of Michael Knowles, but however, I mean, like, we can definitely kind of talk about that. But I mean, like, the question that I would just kind of have, because you accused her of, like, possibly blaspheming, what did Jesus say against trans people?
What did Jesus say against trans people?
Yes.
Are you, like, referring to, like, the eunuchs?
Just kind of specific, like, just kind of specifically talking about what did Jesus say about trans people? Because I mean, like, look, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But to the best of my knowledge, he didn't really say anything. So again, I could be wrong.
Well, like, Paul's letters would kind of also be the instruction of the Holy Spirit, and we see, you know, like, the issue with transgenderism is to say that you have changed your gender is no longer carrying out the role that God has given to you, let's say, right? So, like, we do see in 1 Corinthians 11, Paul condemns men dressing and looking like women, and vice versa, right? Because the history of Corinth was that men used to grow their hair long and dress like women and wear jewelry, and women would cut their hair short to look like men and be more masculine, right? And Paul condemns it, even at that time.
Well, I mean, look, so I kind of disagree that it is an accurate depiction of how kind of Jesus would have looked in, like, pretty much all types of, like, media or photographs, or just kind of, like, sculptures, or, like, any sort of depiction of Christ. I do not think that is an accurate representation at all. I mean, at least not historically. I mean, for Christ's sake, he's portrayed as being white, and he was born in the Middle East. He absolutely wasn't. However, isn't Jesus in almost every depiction shown to have long hair?
but also has a beard, right? So Christ
True,
was.
but would Jesus himself not be going against biblical teachings if that was the case?
So it says that his hair. Well, one depiction of Jesus is when he came back. So like after he had ascended and came back, he is depicted with eyes like fire and hair like wool, and it's white. And then the pictures that you probably see are pre-ascension, when Christ just was walking around before the crucifixion, and his hair would have been long because he was a Nazarene, right? The difference is what was going on in Corinth at the time was the men were intentionally trying to look feminine, right? Because people used to say to me, Rob, your hair is long. The Bible says you can't have long hair. The question is, how long? What is Paul really talking about here? Paul is talking about presenting yourself um, in a different role or as in a different identity rather than being a man, right? We see Orthodox priests, they don't cut their hair and they don't cut their beards. That's to do with something else, but they're not trying to present themselves as women. That's what was going on in Corinth. That's what Paul had the issue with.
Right. Um. Yeah. Look, I mean, okay. Like, it's not that I don't. Sorry, I thought I fucking heard a noise or something like that. Anyway, sorry. Because I was just thinking, I'm fucking home alone. Why am I hearing noises? Sorry. I was, yeah, sorry. Not that I necessarily want to just kind of move away from this or anything else, but like, it's just religion, as you know, as I had said the last time, it's not something that I overly kind of talk about or anything else. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's always going to kind of boil down to it's my opinion versus your opinion, right?
Yeah.
So, and look, I mean, like, we can kind of look at some things that are in the Bible and we can have a discussion there, but it's just, yeah, like, okay, so was there anything else of the kind of list of things that I kind of sent to you that you would kind of want to have a chat about? And I'll just kind of quickly look at the list myself because I just want to join or to jog the memory.
You mentioned Elon doing the salute, and you mentioned has Trump failed the US, and then you mentioned AOC. I don't know much about the whole AOC thing. I did do a little bit of research, but that one I feel like I probably can't give the best opinion on because I didn't really know much about it. But with the whole Elon thing, maybe I can give an opinion on that. And then with Trump failing the US, yeah, I'm willing to talk about it. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, of the three, kind of pick your choice, you know.
Let's go with the Elon one first.
Okay, yeah, sure. Let's get the spicy one. Do you know what? Honestly, Rob, I'm genuinely so happy that I'm having this kind of conversation, right? The last couple of times that I've gone live, right, I don't normally have this background, as in it's blurred and it's blue. It's just like a series of prompts that I kind of made, right? And one of them was that Elon did do that salute. Almost fucking nobody has taken me up on it, so I'm fucking thrilled that somebody finally has. But anyway, yeah, so, I mean, yeah, just go on, kind of state your position there.
Yeah, so it's a weird one because I'm half and half, to be honest, right? Never really, like, I'm not like a fanboy or anything of Elon. I respect what he's done in his career or whatever, and, you know, what he's done for cryptocurrency and stuff like that. With the whole salute thing, I feel like we can never actually really know, right? Contextually, it can be taken out of context and it can be made look like he's, you know, doing that salute. Then also you can go along with his statement where he said it wasn't, and what he's saying really happened, and that was a heat of the moment thing. And I feel like it's a tough one. Like, has he really expressed anything else that he's shown that he is a sympathizer of the painter man?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So the oh my god, I'm gonna butcher the three letters now. It's the ADF, I think, is a far right party in Germany, of all places, and they have they have very, very, very publicly expressed their, shall we say, sympathies of the Mustache Man. And he called in over Skype and did a speech at one of their rallies. So, like, and then also Elon has never specifically said that that's not the salute that he did, and it was a couple of years ago. I think it was at some Tesla event, where in order to kind of show with his hands and with his arms and everything else, because I talk with my arms and with my hands because I'm autistic. I don't know if that's actually the reason, but I happen to be, and I happen to talk with my hands. In a way of kind of showing that his heart went out to the audience, which is what he said after he did that salute, which is he went, my heart goes out to you. That's what he did previously. So and look, I mean, I have no issues with that. If you want to show with your, if you want to talk with with your hands, showing that your heart goes out to you, that is bang on. That is absolutely, like, that's perfect what you did there. Saying, however, that your heart goes out to them after doing that salute, like, I just don't think that puts it into, like, the proper, I don't think that there is a proper context for that.
Yeah, see, it's a tough one. It really is, because the way he done it as well was weird. Like, and then my other part would be, like, he's running around with Donald Trump, who I wouldn't say is a sympathizer of the Mustache Man, because he's very good friends with the opposition of the Mustache Man. And I would also say that Trump, who I've been doing more research on lately, is definitely not a Christian. He is a Jew.
Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting you to go. I would agree with the first half of that statement, just maybe not the last three words, if you count A as a word. But yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with you that no, he is absolutely not a Christian. That is laughable. I mean, for Christ's sake, he did a photo op where he held the Bible upside down. What the fuck are you doing, like?
On the Bible during the inauguration, and like, there's some Christians speculating that, like, he's the false Messiah that's supposed to come, and it could be true. It actually could be true. I never really was like this. I never had that savior complex of Donald Trump. When he talked about Christ, I was happy, and I like his conservative values. But to hear that he's practicing Kabbalah, and he's a big sympathizer of Israel, and all these awards he's getting, he's been declared the Prince of Peace by Israel, he's been given a crown by Israel, he's all of these different things. Is there connotations there? Like, a lot of people are turning on Trump now. The anti-Semitic people are turning on Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Why would Elon do something like that? I don't know. It's a bit weird, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
if he and Nancy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do definitely understand what you're saying. I mean, like, Trump is also the person who had Nick Fuentes to, like, he had him for dinner in Mar-a-Lago, and he sat down with him for like a couple of hours. And I mean, we all know who he is and what he believes, and this is a guy who he like invited to his personal home. This was like, I think it was like 2022, maybe 2023, but it wasn't like that long ago. So like, you're talking about during Biden's administration, he had this extreme far right schmatzi in his personal home for dinner. And then he has Elon. I'm like kind of going like in order of as it happened now, but he had Elon like the day of his fucking inauguration doing that salute. Now he has talked about taking over all of these places. He wants to invade Greenland. He wants to make Canada the 51st state. He's talked about, not specifically, but he's talked about doing something with Mexico. Of course, he wants to take over the Panama Canal. He has said that he wants to essentially buy Gaza, which I don't know what his obsession with buying places that are just absolutely not for sale. Like, what the fuck are you doing? So like, he's absolutely talking about invading all of these places. He had an executive order that reopened Gitmo, and he wants to put 30,000 immigrants into Gitmo, which has a max capacity of 1,000 people. Now, I don't know necessarily if that's just a camp that he just really, really, really like seriously wants to heavily concentrate on, but that's definitely the vibes that I'm getting.
I hear what you're saying. I do. I hear what you're saying. You've built a good case.
Like, look, honestly, and I mean genuinely, 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 during his first term, I equally cringed as much as I'm sure like anybody who was on the right did when other leftists said that he was the new Schindler, right? I understand that. I genuinely did. But I'm sorry, man, the evidence is too fucking much now. Like it's too like the case that has been built is just too much. Like I can't kind of, ignore that. Like
This can nearly transition into our next point. Like, did he fail the US? Like that one there, I don't think he's failed the US, right? But I do like some of the stuff he's doing. But you can also make the point that, Schmittler done things supposedly that were good for the country. You know what I mean? But I'm conservative, but I'm not one of these alt-rights that's going to sympathize with him. Oh, the Holocaust was only 200,000. He was a good guy. I'm not one of those guys. I'm never going to end up as one of those guys. You can't be Christian and support him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have been thinking lately, like genuinely, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, are we going to look back in 100 years and view Trump the same way? The way we look back at World War II.
I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the same way unless shit really escalates. But I mean, it's not necessarily something that I've like specifically kind of thought about, as in like how are people going to look back in like 100 years time on what's kind of happening now. But like it's definitely I don't know. I like, oh god. I mean, like, I don't think that he's like viewed favorably now by like more than 50% of the country. Like you're talking about in 100 years time. I like if you were to somehow kind of gauge the approval rating in 100 years time, I mean, like it's like is it possible to go into negative numbers? Like it's because I mean, like this is just how kind of society and everything else as a whole is kind of generally going. We are generally getting slowly but surely kind of more progressive, more kind of certain, in certain areas kind of more left leaning and certain like that. So it's I don't know. I don't think that people are going to look at him in the same way, but I don't think that he's going to be viewed positively.
As someone who, as I spoke about before, I'm a theocratic fascist. I really was like hoping that if Trump got in, he'd give a lot more power to the church, and we would get back to that, right? Because obviously that's what I support. But it seems like, I don't know, like he is becoming quite dictatorial in the sense that he's kicking as much of the left out as he can. I don't really support statism at all. I think it just falls apart. And in 4 years' time, a Democrat's going to get in, reverse everything Trump done, and it'll just be back and forth, this never-ending cycle. And this is why I just believe the church should just be in power. But
yeah, no, look, I mean, like that's like it's definitely something that I kind of had conversations with like anybody who would disagree with the prompt of like Donald has ruined the US. When they kind of come up to argue specifically against that, and they're arguing in favor of tariffs and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, look, let's just run down the argument, right? So all these tariffs have been placed, right? So now it's on the US companies to have the manufacturing there so that it's at least kind of price competitive, if not a little bit cheaper, blah, 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 right? That's the argument. The issue with that is that if you if you are a US company, you currently don't manufacture your goods in the US, which means that you have to build the plant or the kind of the warehouse or the entire area where all of the manufacturing is going to happen. That shit doesn't happen overnight. That's probably about 2 years away. That's probably the best kind of calculations is about kind of 2 years away, if not longer than that. So are you really going to spend all of the money to make your manufacturing plant in the US so that possibly if a Democrat wins next time and undoes all of the tariffs, you're like your plant is there is now just there just taking up real estate. So like, do you just kind of, you know, bite the bullet and suffer the consequences of the tariff and not build in the US, or do you build in the US knowing that possibly it's all going to be undone in just a few short years? So say it's 2 years to make it, 2 years later it's now obsolete, right? That's the kind of counter argument. And like I don't know, man. It's
So, if more people build small businesses in America, right, and they go through with that, and they see that the economy is growing, wouldn't you say then another conservative would get voted in that Trump promotes, let's say, that would keep on those tariffs and those same tax cuts and stuff like that that Trump has already proposed, those orders he's put in place? Because if one conservative has done a good job for the country, let's say, okay, Trump's character is bad, but he like does everything he says he was going to do to the economy, and people see that, people are going to value the economy a lot more than their feelings sometimes, because money does make the world go round, unfortunately.
yeah, no, absolutely. No is the honest answer. No, I don't think that he's going to be that a conservative is going to be voted in next time, and that is because the US this time voted with their kind of their wallet in their mind. And the US is currently still under Trump's tax plan from the first time that he was in office. It is in effect, I think, until March of this year. So for the entirety of the 4 years under Biden, they were under Trump's tax plan, right? So people were noticing that inflation was going up, that their taxes were higher, which was always supposed to happen, all of these sorts of things. And they blamed, well, Biden is in office because, I mean, like, unfortunately, people just don't really know that much about politics. Like, I mean, especially in the US, they're really... I'm sorry, I love my fucking US audience, but they're like the vast majority of them are really, really, really stupid when it comes to politics, and they just don't look into how this shit actually works, right? So they were doing bad under Trump's last tax plan. They blamed Biden for it, and so they thought, well, Trump is running against him. He's like, maybe times were good when he was there before, because the first couple of years of his tax plan, low and middle class earners saw a tax cut, but then eventually saw a tax increase, which again was always supposed to happen, right? So they voted him back in to hopefully have that exact same thing happen again, and they would have a tax cut, therefore they would have more money in their pockets. But the problem with that is, if Trump now does yet another one of his kind of tax plans, he can't say, oh, well, that was Biden's, because it just wasn't, because then he's defeating his own argument, which is that Biden, when he was in under supposedly his tax plan, ruined the country the first time. Now Trump gets in, does a new one. If that works out badly for low and middle class earners, which it will, then they're just going to switch and they're going to vote Democrat. That's at least what I think is going to happen. If the next Democrat running kind of like builds a good case and does kind of like basically kind of exactly that, if they like lay that out, an awful lot of people are going to listen to him.
What if he follows in the footsteps of the like Argentinian president? Like, with all the government, like, he's cutting out the government wastage, tax refunds. There might be a bit of a loss in the beginning, but like, look at what Argentina has turned into already. Like, it's just gonna keep going up.
Okay, so by doing what specifically have they kind of implemented?
So like, kind of like what Doge has done, cutting out government wastage, cutting out all these departments that supposedly are needed, right? A smaller government. And Trump has already said he wanted a smaller government. What Argentina has done, which I wish I had more research on this, my friends are very in tune with Argentina at the moment. You know, departments of education, department of this, that, and the third, just cuts them out. Gone. No more government spending on any of these departments. They're, I'm pretty sure they're out of national debt already. Everybody's, the inflation has gone down. He has lowered taxes in turn because there's not as much government spending, and then people are getting more money in their pocket, and they love him. They love him. They really, really love him. And Trump just met with him, I think, last week. I think it was.
Okay.
You should do some research. He's kind of like a libertarian. He leans more libertarian.
No, I mean, I definitely will. I like. Are you then like we'll say like in favor of them kind of cutting or like looking at the Department of Education?
Oh, 100%. Like, there's people who are on $200,000 salaries, but yet they have $12 million in their bank a year. Where's that coming from?
We're talking about teachers now at the moment?
No. I'm talking about the people who work in government for these departments.
Oh, so kind of like congressmen and senators.
Yes.
Well, I mean, like that's because of insider trading. That's nothing to do with like I mean, like that is corruption. That do not get me wrong, but that's not like necessarily like because the Department of Education is getting a fuck ton of funding. That's a good thing. The bad thing is that there's insider trading going on. Is that like Congress people and senators are allowed to buy stocks. But what happens is if you are a congressman or if you are a senator and you're writing and passing bills that like that affect all of these various kind of businesses and stuff like that, therefore allow their like them to like if you give them tax cuts, if you lower kind of regulations on like fucking oil dumping or like something of that effect, that then in turn allows their profits to go up. But then if you invest in that company and their profits go up, that means that their stock prices go up. So if you know that you're about to sign a bill into law, right? You haven't done it yet, but you're about to. There is nothing stopping a congressman from investing in the company that is going to now benefit from the bill you are about to pass. And when it does pass and when their stock prices go up, they then sell them at a profit so that they then make money off of that. That's the insider trading. That's the bad thing. That's the corruption. There's nothing to say that just simply because the Department of Education is getting funding that makes it corrupt.
So you think it's okay for them to get loads and loads of funding?
Yeah, absolutely.
What? Cut them out completely. Get rid of them. Completely.
But I mean, like why? I mean, like, what's the argument against it?
So, like, for example, like the Department of Transport here in Ireland does absolutely nothing. And there's a bunch of government spending being sent to them, a bunch of government funding, but yet they do nothing. So get rid of them and bring in private companies to do it instead, where we'll actually get something out of it. And lower the taxes in turn, because there's so much government wastage. I was looking up here the statistics on what like the guy in Argentina has done, right? And it says here he reduced real public spending by 30%, leading to a primary fiscal surplus of 0.3% of GDP in January 2024. And it was the first time in over a decade that happened. Like, they're nearly out of national debt because he just cut out all of this government funding to all these different departments, and it there's a change in the country's GDP. Like in Ireland, we see it. We're constantly in debt. They said they're going to spend this on a metro and all of this type of money. It's all wastage, and that's what Aintu was pushing for as well, to cut out government wastage. Why would you push for more money to go to these departments when they're doing nothing with the money?
Well,
they're swindling.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, like, I definitely wouldn't say that they're not doing anything with the money. Whether they're being productive with it or not, that's a totally separate conversation. But, I mean, like, oh God, I just don't think that kind of putting it in the hands of a for-profit company, therefore, you know, that is what would happen if you then privatized it, right? Putting it in the hands of like a for-profit company, I just don't think that that's like necessarily like the way to go, because like if there's a profit incentive for it, then like that's what they're gonna do. If you have a private company that has shareholders, that has stockholders, that has all of these sorts of things, your incentive is not going to be to provide the best policy, the best quality and best possibility of kind of transportation or of education or of all of these sorts of things. Your number one priority is going to be to make profit. So anything that is regarding public education, public transport, like any of these sorts of public programs, they should absolutely not be privatized, because you're not going to get the best possible results out of it. You're going to get the best possible profits out of it, but not the best results.
I disagree with that, because anytime I go private with anything, it's so much better. So, like, if I take the public bus, it's slow and it's dirty and it's out of date. Or if I take the Matthews bus, which I don't know if you have that, that's the private coach. Yes, it's more expensive, but it's nicer. But if there's more money going into my pocket because I'm not paying a bunch of taxes for the crappy public stuff, I have the money to hop on the private one.
Yeah, but if they were to get rid of the public option, right? So if they were to get rid of the kind of public buses and all of these sorts of things, then like, what's to stop the private company from saying, well, there's basically no fucking competition. We're kind of pretty much a monopoly now. So what's to stop them from doubling their prices? And if you don't like it, well, you don't have an alternative. So either pay twice the price or walk. What's to stop them from doing that?
It's a good point.
Because I mean, if you say kind of government regulation over it, then that's not small government, which is what you would be in favor of.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I'm trying to think. I think this kind of is like what anarcho-capitalism is, and I like it, but I don't know enough about it to kind of answer your question. If you could help me answer my question, if you know anything about anarcho-capitalism. But I do like the whole idea of like government regulations, but it's not owned by the government, but it's still an incentive. They're still making a profit, and it's still an incentive then for people to use it. Everybody's making money then.
Yeah, I understand that everybody is making money, but I mean, like, if
companies are inclined to provide good quality care and good quality services because they know people depend on it, and they know people are giving them the money. Like, if they're not providing, another company can just open up then. Because your point there about, oh, we can just double the prices, well then, there's a bunch of people walking, right? So let's say an average Joe, sees everyone walking and decides to open up his own private coach business, and I'm charging half the price, and I'm still making profit.
Yeah, but I mean, at the current moment, you have like either some privatized transport or you have public transport. So, like, even if it was to eventually kind of go to what you were talking about, for like somebody to see an opening for competition in the market, like even initially, even if, because I mean, like again, kind of going back to the whole kind of manufacturing plant, that shit doesn't happen just overnight, right? There is a massive and unfathomable amount of capital that you need to raise and therefore then invest in buying coaches, buying buses, buying all of these things, training the drivers, hiring them, all of these sorts of things. You're probably again about kind of 2 years away from being kind of fully operational and fully kind of up and running. The problem that I then have is that for those 2 years, you then have one company charging whatever the fuck they like. Sure, they're possibly going to see the incoming competition, but until they're like a real threat to them, they're going to continue charging whatever the hell they want.
I don't know, like, was it like that with airlines? Because there's no public airlines, right? But there's airlines that are cheaper, there's airlines that are more expensive.
Yeah,
Was it like that with
because there's more than one or two. There's quite substantially north of one or two airlines, so they're all in competition with each other. So if one major airline, if major airline A sees major airline B charging an awful lot less for their flights, then major airline A is going to be incentivized to either go cheaper or to at least price match. But if you don't have that competition, if you are the only company, if there was only one major airline running, they could charge literally whatever the hell they wanted, because, well, it's either you go with us or you don't go. It's not. It's worse than the transport option. It's worse than like a public bus, because with the bus you can either pay it or walk. With an airline, you either pay it or you don't go.
That's a good point.
So just to kind of if Ryanair was to somehow buy up literally every single other airline company, they could do that, and they could then charge whatever the fuck they wanted to, whatever they wanted to. So
yeah. Like what was that guy, Martin Shkreli or something like that? Was that his name? Who bought all of the bought the rights to the HIV pill or something like that, and charged like, I think it was like $1,000 or something for a pill.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is that if you buy the rights to these like kind of privatized thing, you can charge whatever you want.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I feel like there's definitely like an answer for that I don't know. But
Sure it is. It's socialism. Like it's getting rid of capitalism. That's what it is. It's putting the power back in the hands of people. It's like doing away or like effectively kind of crippling private companies from doing the likes of charging whatever the fuck they want for those sorts of things. Like that guy under socialism would never be allowed to privatize, to own the patents, to own the rights to the HIV pill. Like that would just be publicly available.
I asked ChatGPT, is socialism possible? And it said it's not possible. It's not possible, it said.
Okay.
And then I watched a video about it as well, and it said it's not possible, like it cannot be done.
I mean, like, oh God. I'm going to kind of say this in the nicest possible way that I possibly can. I don't care what ChatGPT says. Like, I really don't. It's made by a company under capitalism that has its algorithms kind of written for it, that like was made by somebody, that was made by a capitalistic company. So I mean, like you could it's not even necessarily like, it's not a conspiracy theory at all. I mean, you could literally say that it has kind of certain things kind of baked into it to like argue against these like sorts of things. But also, so you can trick the likes of these kind of ChatGPT or Gemini is what I have, because I have a Samsung phone and that comes kind of with it, whatever else, right? It's like its own kind of AI thing, version of and I mean, like I have literally gotten an argument like for and against a certain premise, because I mean, like, these things are just not advanced enough yet to be able to kind of like intelligently argue in the way that you and I are right now.
Yeah. Well, see, the argument I asked it to present to me was one from another video. I can't remember the name of the argument. You probably know the name of the argument. Do you know any arguments against socialism that say that it's impossible? There was like a name to it, something economic problem or something.
I mean, like, look at, like, I definitely know, I definitely know kind of like an awful lot of kind of arguments against it, like not one that's like necessarily like titled in the sense of like this is literally like it's not titled that it is not possible or anything else, like it's not titled as that, but I mean, like, yeah, like I've heard an awful lot of arguments against socialism, sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still just kind of half and half on socialism. Someone made a good point that would you say Jesus Christ was a socialist? Um, and that got me thinking.
I mean, you could argue that he was. You could very easily argue that he was.
How the early church acted was quite kind of socialist. Like they gathered all of their stuff together, all their money, all their belongings, and just gave it out for free. That was it. Does that
Yeah,
sound
I
like
mean, like,
socialism?
look at like I firmly believe that if the character depicted in the Bible of Jesus Christ was to come back today, he would be absolutely appalled at the state of the Catholic Church today.
At the Catholic Church?
At the
Why?
Catholic Church, absolutely. The Vatican is its own fucking country. It's worth like how many billions? Jesus hated, despised rich people. Absolutely despised them.
I think Jesus would have a heart attack looking at Protestantism. Protestantism is much worse than Catholicism.
Well,
This state of Protestantism is so bad, like it's pushing me to become Catholic. It's so bad. Like you think the Vatican's rich? These Protestant preachers, the fake Protestant preachers and the charismatics and stuff that are swindling and scamming people are worth millions. Like Nigeria's riddled with it. Like one of the most richest people in Nigeria is a pastor.
mm-hmm.
I think he'd be, and then all of the division and the heresy and this the abuse on both sides, Catholicism and Protestantism, like that type of abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse. Well, I think, yeah, like he would have his cruxes definitely with the Catholic Church, but I think with Protestantism is where he would really have his issues.
Um, yeah, I mean, like, look, like, I'm not necessarily going to kind of argue against that. I mean, I had literally just kind of said, the Catholic Church just as kind of like one example, just because I mean, like, Ireland is kind of mainly Catholic and blah 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 blah, right? So that's kind of fair enough. But yeah, I mean, like, if like he was just to kind of look at the state of kind of organized religion, and this is like as like a completely and utterly like broad whole, it's every kind of sect. Yeah, I think he would be absolutely appalled at it. The like
And what's
level of wealth. I mean, like any of these kind of like literally mega churches, right? You mainly kind of see them more so over in the States, but there are a few kind of around the world. I think that he would be absolutely appalled by them.
I'm actually in the midst of building a massive project where I'm exposing all of these mega church pastors in Ireland, these cult leaders, and how
Yeah.
much money they're like. It is pretty bad. But the thing is, like, it's a weird one because the church needs money, of course, to run, right? You know, God commands his people in like Haggai and like the Old Testament to build a temple and to give everything to build his temple. And that's fine. I genuinely don't think that's bad. I don't think like the way the Vatican is bad. Why would that be bad if God has commanded it? Like it's his temple.
I just think that the Vatican being its own country, with its own laws, the amount of wealth that is stored and that is hoarded within the Vatican itself, I just think that's absolutely kind of shameful.
But they use it to fund parishes and missionary projects and to run the Vatican and the church.
I mean, that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. But oh, I mean, like, you could also kind of argue that that stuff was kind of used in the past to kind of cover up an awful lot of kind of scandals shall
Yeah,
we
I would agree.
say, you know the scandals I'm talking, you know the scandals I'm talking about, that happen in the kind of Catholic Church here and stuff like that. So I mean, like, look at, like, yeah, I understand that that money is being used to kind of fund all of the churches and stuff like that. Like, but I mean, like, given that it's been used to do the, like, those sorts of things, you know, Jesus is no dummy. He would already kind of know about that, presumably before he came back. So, like, I just don't, like, even kind of counting that in, I don't think that he would be too impressed by that.
Of course, and that's the role of the church, is to hold those people accountable. Like, that's what Luther went and you know proposed, that the church was corrupted with the indulgences, and they held a council and they condemned those actions, that people were being corrupt within the church and taking money to get into heaven and these type of things and paying your way out of sin. Like, that's wrong, and the church holds those people accountable for that. But we can't just equivocate. Like, it kind of becomes a fallacy then, like, oh, I don't think you're trying to say, oh, like Catholicism is bad because that stuff happens, but some people do. And Jesus would come back and hold the people who have done the action accountable, and the church. But if they're doing their job in holding those people accountable, then Jesus can't really condemn them, because they've done their part where they've called out the corruption. I don't know
Yeah,
what's going on behind the walls, but I'm gonna have to argue and say, of course they're gonna use the money to fund the churches, to fund their country. You know what I mean? They don't have papal jurisdiction anymore, so they can't really do whatever they want with it.
yeah, that's that's true. Yeah, no, look, I mean, like, my kind of main point was just that, like, I just think that if like Jesus was to look at kind of organized religion now, that he would just be appalled. Um, but yeah, yeah, we kind of started on fucking Elon and somehow wound up at religion again. I mean, like, yeah, it's just what happens. I'm not necessarily kind of saying it's a bad thing or anything else, but yeah, I like, so okay, so like, what has like Trump done now that it's literally the 20th? He's had a full month in. I mean, like, what do you kind of think that he has done that like you would agree with?
And you probably won't like this one, but the whole abolishing of the transgender ideology, I would agree with that. I think the way he done it was good.
Well, I mean, he hasn't abolished the transgender ideology. That's impossible. Like, nobody can do that. He's banned them from the military, sure, but I mean, like, he's not. I mean, like, getting rid of an
The
ideology is impossible.
I what I meant by that is like, he no longer has government law that's promoting it. Let's say, so like, if someone had their name change and their sex change on their ID, I'm pretty sure it's changed back now, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with that. It's no longer endorsing the ideology. So the goal is to, and don't misquote me on this, eradicate the ideology. That is the goal. Not the people, the ideology.
But
Eventually, we want it to just die out. That's the goal of a conservative, is for the ideology, the thought process of it even, is to just die out.
But I mean, like, how can you even, like, how can you get out? So okay, so like, I don't think that trans people are an ideology. I just don't really kind of see how they fit into that particular box. But even if, just for the sake of argument, they do, like, I mean, like, how do you go about kind of getting rid of it?
Well, through
Uh,
education.
before you start, because I know that Michael Knowles did the fucking Jubilee thing. I swear to Christ, if you parrot one of his arguments, I may lose my shit. But anyway, sorry. Yes, yeah, yeah. Go on.
Probably like just through education, like, the goal is, we want these people, right? We don't want them to be excluded and ostracized from society. We want them to realize that their way of thinking is wrong, right? Because obviously on the conservative side, we believe it's a delusion. We don't believe that they actually believe this, right? That they're disillusioned and confused. So we want them to see that, okay, I'm actually not the opposite sex. I actually am this sex. You know what I mean?
Well,
There's a way of doing it. You know, we don't want to do this like a totalitarian iron fist, you know, put on men's clothes or else type of thing, right? But a way of it not be, we can't tolerate it either.
okay, but I mean, like, would you be kind of talking about like education just kind of in general, or I mean, are you talking about like conversion therapy? Are you talking about something else that's not really? I just want to like. I understand, like, at a base level what you're kind of saying and what you're kind of talking about. I just want to almost kind of like pin it down and kind of get like an idea of exactly what you're.
Um, See, I don't know much about this whole conversion therapy thing, right? I've heard in conversion therapy, some homosexual people are brought there and they're made to watch like indecent images and videos. That's no, that's not going to work,
I
right?
mean,
The
like
Bible literally.
that's probably like the most charitable version of it that you can present. I mean, like, we're like probably the worst is like shock therapy. That's not, yeah.
Not
So I mean, like it, and look, I mean, like, even after, as if that's not already kind of bad enough, which it absolutely is. But even after that, I mean, like, the success rate of conversion therapy is like zero. Like, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't endorse any of that. I would have to go biblical there and say, you know, you can't cast out demons with demons, right?
All right. Okay.
Um, but I have heard anecdotes, so I don't know anything about statistics here, but I've heard anecdotes of, you know, trans people being just true church therapy. True church have been delivered. Obviously, for me, I would believe that this is a demonic influence. Um, Now, it's not demons being exorcised out of them, but through the grace of God have been transformed in their thinking and realized that, you know, their way of thinking was wrong, and eventually they come to Christ. But obviously we can't implement that governmentally here. So I would just say it's like removing it from the education sector, and the fact that they don't promote it anymore and say it's okay, but they speak of it as an ideology and a thing that, okay, if you get these thoughts, you know, it's okay to have the thoughts, but that doesn't mean you have to act on them. Your identity doesn't have to be built upon your sexual attraction. Your identity doesn't have to be built upon your gender dysphoria. You can sort those issues out on the side and realize that it's not your whole identity anymore. Because we do see, right, and I'm sorry to quote Michael Knowles, like the same stuff he quotes, but like how it's nearly a social influence. The more it's happening, the more people are inclined to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Of trans people, the amount of them wasn't the same, you know, 50 years ago, 100 years ago.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that is absolutely true. I mean, like, it's not necessarily that, you know, I mean, like, there was no such thing, we'll say, as kind of trans people until kind of 150 years ago, because I mean, like, that would be equally wrong to say. But yeah, I would just kind of say, though, that, you know, like, the amount of kind of left-handed people fucking skyrocketed at a certain point in history, because we said that, like, there's nothing wrong with being left-handed. And as a lefty myself, not only in my politics but also the hand that I write with, I can personally say there's no demons in me. There's nothing fucking wrong with me. It doesn't make me less of a human just because I write with my right hand, with the left hand. But in the same way as, like, the whole kind of controversy or the whole kind of otherism around people being left-handed, as, like, in the same way as that was kind of done away with, in the same way now as we have kind of come to, like, you know, broadly accept trans people, now you have an awful lot more people kind of coming forward. And it wasn't just kind of lefties to just kind of trans people. It was lefties to kind of, you know, gay or bi people, and now to kind of trans people. So yeah, I mean, like, it's not as if like there's like a massive spike because this is now just being taught and it's been indoctrinated into people. It's just because it's more socially acceptable. People are afraid of being hated on. People are afraid of being abused in the streets. People are afraid of all of these things. But if they see the kind of social swing happening towards acceptance, then they feel a little bit more kind of comfortable coming out.
I don't know. I feel like it's just a consequence of the fall. You know, people are just becoming more and more inclined and further away from God to think that these things are normal. You know, and it's because of their fallen nature, in my opinion. You know what I mean? We're just these type of ideas are just going to keep on getting worse. You know, like marijuana will eventually be legalized, and it will be coke and heroin, and you know we already have spoken on the abortion issue, and then it's transgenderism, and it's all of these ideologies that supposedly were hidden away, and now people are more inclined and can open and be doing all of these things, but no one's getting happier. You know, so I
I
don't know,
mean, I
man.
would argue that the trans people are getting happier now that they can
I
like
think
fully kind of be themselves, and they can kind of, you know.
I think the statistics show differently.
You
And
you think
before
that
I knew about Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh and all those guys, I was debating this issue back in like 2017, 2018 in school, and they were trying to push it really on us, and I used to stand up and say no, like, you know, this the schmuicide rates amongst trans people post op is still just as big as before op, and then people say, oh, but they're being hated on, da 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 da, and you know they're being abused, but like I just don't feel that's true anymore, especially in Western society.
I mean, like, look, I definitely don't think that it's as high as it was like pre-op, or yeah, pre-op. But um I mean, like, yeah, like an awful lot of that rate can be attributed to the like kind of non-acceptance or kind of social disillusion or social exclusion or any like all of these sorts of things. Like I absolutely think, yeah, that it can just not.
But how come Christians aren't offing themselves?
because because Christians are still widely accepted within society.
I would say different, like a conservative Christian like myself. I wouldn't say I'd say we face quite a lot of scrutiny and like like I've seen people just like say I cannot be friends with you anymore. Like the same thing as you could say that's happening with trans people, right? But why don't we see the rate of conservative Christians schmooshide rate going up?
I mean, like, as like a direct answer to that question, like I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think that they are, just because I don't think that it's like, yes, look, are you going to possibly kind of, you know, lose some kind of friendship groups and stuff like that, like, you know, if you kind of share certain opinions or certain you know, stances online and all this sort of stuff, like, you know, is it possible that you lose friend groups over that? Yeah, sure, but I mean, like, I just don't think that
I'm
it's
thrown in jail
okay. Well,
in the
I
UK.
mean, sorry.
In the UK and America, they're getting thrown in jail as well. Don't forget that.
Who are getting thrown in jail?
Christians, have you not heard?
What is it, like, simply just because they are Christian?
No, for like praying outside of abortion clinics and stuff like that.
Well, look, you can argue that they're kind of. You can argue that they are disturbing the peace, or that they're kind of creating a scene, or they're like doing all that sort of stuff. Like not necessarily. I don't
I
want to
would say a
just
man,
dismiss
a
that,
woman.
but sorry.
I would say a man dressing as a woman is disturbing the peace.
How? Why?
Well, like if we go along that same line, right, that Christians are disturbing the peace if they pray outside of an abortion clinic, I would say a man dressing as a woman walking down Main Street, and let's say there's 100 Christians on that street, and they have to witness that, that's disturbing the peace.
Right, but I mean, like, what if you don't know that they're trans?
I'm just saying, like, let's say it was like someone like me just with a wig on, but I call myself trans. So someone who's very early socially transitioning.
Right, but I mean, I just don't necessarily think that they're kind of disturbing the peace like in the same way. You could maybe kind of argue that they are, but you know, the likelihood that like a trans person is kind of going up to them and are like shouting abuse at them, or are kind of like trying to kind of stop them from going into the abortion clinic, or from like all of these sort of things, I just don't think necessarily that like a trans person would like do that even if they were faced with a group of like 100 Christians, mainly because they're outnumbered, but also, and like this is kind of backtracking a little bit, if you're standing outside of an abortion clinic and you attempt to put your hand on someone to stop them from going in, that's classified as an assault. So
that's not though.
They're
silently praying.
But you have to agree that like even if it's not the majority of them, an awful lot of them are trying to stop them from going in. And in those cases, if you put your hands on someone, that is assault. And I mean, I'm sorry, do I feel sorry for you if you get arrested for that? No, not at all. Like,
I would agree with that.
If somebody was arrested simply because they weren't doing anything, they were just a Christian, that was their crime. I don't agree with that. Not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. But the point is that like that's not happening. Nobody is getting arrested simply just because they are Christian, not because they were just walking down like on the street minding their own business, not even talking to anyone, not doing anything. They were just being a Christian, and that's why they were arrested. That's not happening. But it's kind of getting to the point, especially in Trump's America, where that could happen if you are trans. It's not yet, but you know, it's not exactly a very favorable path that they're going down.
I'm not even trying to make this about religion again. I was only using the example of the Christians who have been arrested for silently praying outside of abortion clinics. And like, obviously, yeah, we know there's Christians that are being persecuted in like Eastern Europe and stuff. That's a whole different story, right? But in Western society, Christians are being arrested outside of abortion clinics for praying silently. Whereas we could say then that a transgender person walking down the street is disturbing the peace for us. Why are they not getting arrested, right? Let's say I'm a woman, I want to go and abort my baby, and I see someone praying silently outside, and I say, oh, that's disturbing the peace, and they get arrested. Is that not the same thing as a Christian turning around and saying that a transgender person walking around is disturbing my peace, they should be arrested?
I mean, like, possibly yes, but I mean, like, if somebody is literally just praying and they're not talking, they're not impeding their path, they're not trying to stop them from going into an abortion clinic, I don't necessarily think that they should be arrested either. And like, we are talking strictly under those conditions. If they are literally not doing a single thing to stop them or to try and persuade them or anything else like that from going in, I don't agree with them being arrested. It's the moment that they do try and stop them from going in, that's when I agree with it.
Can they speak to them? So let's say I'm standing outside of an abortion clinic and I ask someone, sorry, can I talk to you, and try to speak to them to not do it. Is that wrong?
Well, I mean, like, even though we kind of talked about this in the last live, I mean, like, you would kind of be under the opinion that, like, we all have free will. So, I mean, like, would you not be impeding on their free will to go in and to go to an abortion clinic?
Impeding?
Like, because Yes, because if you were to stand outside of them and talk to them, I mean, it would obviously be your like goal for them not to walk in after you start talking to them. So would you not be impeding their free will?
Definitely not. Something has already influenced their will to go and carry out an abortion, anyways. So, like, we don't really have full free will. As I said the last time, our will is influenced by something. It's either by God's grace or by the will of the flesh or Satan, or, you know, like good or evil. So, like, if someone's already on the way to carry out an abortion, I would say they've been influenced by the things of the world, by darkness. And if I came along and tried to influence them to not, they're still choosing freely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe. I would just kind of say that, like, yeah, I guess just kind of like trying to kind of stop somebody from doing something that they've already decided that that's what they're wanting to do. You know, I mean, like, even if like the most kind of charitable case that you could possibly kind of put to that is that, like, oh, well, you know, you think it's wrong, so they'll have to live with their consequences and all this. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, like, should that not be kind of, we'll say, kind of good enough for you? I mean, like, why do you like feel like you would have to kind of try and stop them from going in?
Well, I don't want to get into the abortion debate, but you know, I could try and persuade them to not murder another human being. I'm sure if I said to you, Stephen, I want to carry out a mass shooting, you're going to try and convince me to not carry out the mass shooting. Or are you going to say, oh, I don't want to impede on your free will, Rob. Go ahead and, you know, shoot up the school.
Well, no, I would definitely try and persuade you not to do that. But yeah, look, yeah, look, just to kind of get back to kind of trans people as like a whole, yeah, I mean, like, look at like, okay, just so we kind of understand kind of where we're kind of coming from. Like, do you recognize the distinction between sex and gender?
Do I recognize the distinction between sex and gender? Um, I don't like. It's a bit of a tough one, right? Because I know there's cases where people are born without genitalia and stuff like that, right? And they have to present themselves as something. Now, usually they're kind of more inclined to one side or the other, but they kind of have to choose to present themselves, and that would be maybe like the social gender norm, right? Like, I present myself very masculine, but I would say that's inclined because of my sex, right? So I'd say your sex will influence your gender role. So yeah, I would say there's a distinction between the two. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if we agree then that you cannot like kind of like down to the DNA kind of level, you cannot change your sex, you can't change your chromosomes. If we're in agreement there, why can somebody not change their gender?
Because their gender is still bound to their sex.
Well, no, because we've just agreed that they're two different things.
But your gender can only be influenced by your sex, is what I would say.
Well, no, I mean, like, your gender is just your outward expression of like kind of who and what you are.
You could say at a biological level, my sex is male, which inclines my gender to be a man.
Well, yeah, it inclines it to. It doesn't dictate that it has to be.
Well, I would change my wording and say it dictates.
But then you're basically saying that sex and gender are the same thing.
No, because I said the distinction is that your sex is the biological level, and then your gender is the outward expression of it.
But yeah, it's the sociological level of it.
Yes, yeah, I would just say it's like kind of semantics, really. It's like gender is sociological, and then sex is just biological.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. But you would agree that society changes, correct?
It does change. Not that
Right.
I
So
agree.
then why can your sociological expression not change?
Because, as I said, I would say your sex dictates what gender you're going to be. So your gender can never be male,
But
but
it's
your sex can never be man.
but I mean, like, it's not even necessary that we're talking past each other. It's kind of like you're saying two different things at the same time, because you've agreed that sex and gender are two different things. You've agreed that gender is purely sociological. You've agreed that society changes, but it's just like the one kind of stumbling block is that your sociological expression of your gender can't change. Like all of these other things can change, but just not your sociological expression. But why not? The two are different, as we've agreed. You can't change your kind of biological sex, but well, I mean, like, so then you should be able to, because that's the only one that is like absolutely like concrete, that's sealed in. But your gender is not sealed in, because your gender expression, I mean, like, if you kind of go for the more kind of like, I don't even necessarily like saying this, but the more kind of, we'll say, kind of flamboyant gay man might kind of dress in a sense that might not be kind of strictly masculine, as in they like might not be seen walking on the street in a fucking cargo pants and a denim jacket, but they like might be kind of seen dressed in clothing that like might be kind of, you know, seen as being more kind of feminine. So if you can change something like that, then why not just change it just a little bit more and like change something else about yourself?
You could say it's a performance, but it doesn't mean that it's transitioned that person's gender in that moment.
That would be true, yeah, because I mean, if we're just talking about kind of gay men, but I mean, when we're not talking about gay men and when we are talking about trans women, like, they would just be basically kind of going like one or two steps further along the kind of sociological change there, then, no?
Say it's like a never-ending performance
It's a
of the wrong
never-ending
gender.
performance. Oh, okay.
I haven't really ever got to really speak with trans people on this issue. I'm trying to
Yeah,
think
I
if I
would.
ever.
I mean, like, look, it was something that I had also kind of said to Luca, who was in my YouTube live chat earlier and who's been on the live a few times. Like, I would just kind of like absolutely just kind of encourage you to speak to somebody who is trans, because like, look at, like, I can tell you my understanding as someone who is friends with people who are trans, and just in kind of general conversation, kind of getting an understanding of what they are going through, or their kind of gender expression, or like how they kind of came to terms with the fact that they are trans. But I'm only kind of giving you like secondhand information. So I mean, like, yeah, no, I mean, like, definitely kind of going to the source about it, like, and just kind of speaking to them, you know, like it would just be, but like in the sense that I wouldn't kind of say that like go to them and kind of like, but like talk to them. Don't necessarily kind of, you know what I mean? Go in with like an argumentative thing, and like, even if like you just kind of get their kind of side of it and then part ways and never speak again, fair, fine. You know, at least
Yeah.
you've kind of had that kind of conversation. You know, yeah. I mean, like, that's all I would just kind of say.
Yeah, oh no, definitely. Like, you know, like even biblically, Paul spoke with Gentiles. You know, and he says he was a Gentile to the Gentiles. So, indeed, he wasn't going in and, you know, saying, "Oh, you need to just believe in Jesus," and, you know, decimating them in debates. Like, these are people who knew nothing about even Judaism at the time. You know, so like, we are called to go and just talk with people. You know, like, I'm not gonna do that. I've spoke with a lot of homosexuals. I even find it weird when I just say homosexuals, like gay people. You know,
But
I've
yeah,
spoken with a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
um, when I've been at evangelizing and stuff like that, and it's really good to hear their side of things. You know what I mean? And I'm not there to tell you, okay, yeah, you know, you weren't born this way. It's not your way of thinking, stuff like that. Because I was in that position once, and I'm not, you know, out like that. But yeah, so definitely, I think, yeah, what you're saying, it's, I do want to go and I don't know where to. I can't just go to the transgender building and start talking to them. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
if I
yeah,
go.
yeah. No, I know what you mean. I mean, like, look at, like, I would definitely kind of take it like a bit like 10 steps, maybe kind of further. I mean, like, I'm a gender abolitionist. I just think that we should just do away with kind of gender roles, just kind of just in general. Just like just get rid of them. You know, I mean, like there is nothing. So okay, so basically, what I kind of mean by that, right, is that like there is like nothing, like there is nowhere, absolutely nowhere in the DNA code will you find that women are better at, you know, being like homemakers and men are better at going out and working on the fucking railroads all the live long day, right? Nowhere in the DNA code will you find that. That is purely sociologically driven. Purely sociologically driven.
Men are stronger.
By and large, men are stronger, yes, but that's not to say that a woman can't like do any of these sorts of jobs that a man can do. Now, you can say, well, would a man be maybe more kind of efficient in doing certain jobs? You can possibly make that argument quite successfully even. But that doesn't necessarily stop a woman from being able or from being entitled to go into any of these sorts of sectors or do any sorts of jobs. And I mean, there is like nothing to say that a man can't, you know, fucking stay at home and raise the kids and keep a house. There is nothing nothing in the DNA code that says that a man is not able to do that. So like that would be my kind of. It's just because it's not in the kind of DNA code and this stuff is all kind of sociologically driven that like it's just, yeah, I don't know.
Laughing because my wife is in the kitchen cooking right now.
But yeah, but like again, there is nothing to say that you couldn't be cooking. Obviously you're on live right now, so you can't do two things at once, but if you weren't, there is nothing to say that you couldn't do that job. Do you know what I mean?
Me personally couldn't do that job, bro. Oh gosh, I think I can only make like beans on toast. That's about it. So.
I mean, like, look, okay, so in a different kind of, not necessarily in a different argument then, but like, I personally love cooking. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. You know, when me and my girlfriend are living together, like we've kind of basically said like that we're going to kind of divide up kind of like house chores and kind of cooking responsibilities kind of pretty much 50-50, right?
Yeah.
So technically speaking, and from a certain point of view, maybe it's your point of view, I'm not going to give it to you, I'll give you the opportunity to kind of say otherwise, but you could argue that I'm not falling into the kind of preferred gender stereotype.
See, I don't know all the roles you carry out, right? Because like, I kind of would agree in the sense like, yeah, we do split up the chores here in my house. Um, but the difference would be is who is the head of the household? Let's say when you and your girlfriend are living together, who's the head of the household?
I mean, I just don't necessarily think that there's going to be a head of the household. Like, it's not necessarily that like I'm in charge or she's in charge. It's like that like we're both two grown adults who are living in a house together. We just happen to be in a relationship. Like, I'm living with like one of my best friends right now, right? So like I'm renting this house. He's renting one of the other rooms. There is not one of us who is in charge. Now, you could maybe say that that's a bad argument because we're both guys. There was a woman living here before he moved in. I wasn't the head of the household.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it was me and a woman living here under the same roof. I was not the head of the household. So I mean, like, that's kind of bit. Now you can say that that's a little bit different because it's not like that. Like, you know, the house is in my name or her name or both, that we're both just kind of renting a room. But I mean, essentially, that's how my future household with my girlfriend is going to run. Like, it's going to be as if we are still renting, that there is not one kind of head of the household. There are an awful lot of responsibilities to do with the house, and it's both mine and her responsibility to do those jobs.
Yeah, see, I would differ. I would say like a man should be the head of the household. So like my word is final in here, you know. And it's not like a iron fist, like do as I say, make food, get in bed, you know. but it's like there's a level of submission to me, but like also respect. Like she's submitting to me because she trusts me. Do you know what I mean? Um, and I'm the provider. There's actually a lot of responsibility on me. And yeah, like she has freedom or whatever. But if she came to me tomorrow and said, "Oh, babe, can I go and buy a new laptop?" and I turn around and say no, that's it. It's final. I'm the priest of my household. You know.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, listen, like, we're just gonna have just a complete another just kind of um difference of opinion when it kind of comes to that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's I
And I
mean,
feel
like,
like anecdotally, when I've seen, like, before I was a Christian and I've kind of done the 50-50 thing, you know, the woman tends to wear the pants more than the man then, and the man, you know, like, I was kind of like a little cook, and I was being bullied around by the girl, you know what I mean? And I notice when you give the woman too much kind of power and leeway like that, they don't really feel like they need you then. It's not that you want them to depend on you, but it's like women can live on their own just as easily, you know, like they're independent beings.
mm-hmm.
But the relationship between a man and a woman should be that the woman wants to rule over the man, but she controls herself in the sense that she says, okay, no, I need to submit unto somebody, and that somebody is my husband. Because there's this, there, I believe that in the DNA of a woman, she wants to rule over men.
But
She wants to be in.
where is that found in the DNA code?
I don't know. That I have to research that. I don't know because I'm quoting quoting biblical literature, so I haven't found it in the DNA code. But obviously, I believe that God's words is objective truth, and if He said that women will want to rule over men, and that I've seen it anecdotally, I would say yeah, I'd say it does happen.
But okay, so here's maybe kind of like one of the more important questions that I can kind of ask you, right? So you believe that because it's in the Bible that it says X, right? If you do your investigations and you find out that no, that it is actually Y, will you change your mind on your kind of preconception, or will you kind of find contradictory data and say, well, no, Bible?
It's a bit of a tough one because it mightn't be in the DNA. It could be just a thing of the soul or the fallen nature, right? Maybe it was bad to maybe use the word DNA there. Yeah, maybe it was bad to use the word DNA. But if I found like, you know, studies show that women actually don't want to rule over men and it's in the DNA code, well then yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to change my thinking. But that's a hypothetical check. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
man,
mean,
you know.
yeah, I mean, it's a hypothetical kind of until you kind of look into it, but oh God, yeah, I don't know what to, yeah. It's not that I don't like necessarily know what to say to that, because I absolutely do. But you had said before we had gone live that you were wanting to kind of cut this off at 9. It's now 10 past. I don't know how kind of strict you were on that kind of time. If you do have to go, it's totally fine. I'll kind of continue on the kind of like TikTok live, whatever else. But yeah, it's up to I'll like
To like, I definitely do have to wrap up now. But I would love to do this again. I feel
yeah.
like if I done more research, anthropology and stuff like that, I think we could do another discussion on like this type of stuff. I find this really interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, look, I mean, like, I go live kind of, you know, a few times a week on TikTok. So I mean, like, if you do kind of want to, and like maybe kind of not kind of organizing it in the same way as like this was, if you just see me live and want to fucking pop up, 100% just do, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, look at yeah. Genuinely, to everybody who is in my TikTok and YouTube audience, I know that well, definitely my kind of YouTube audience, not an awful lot of you agreed with them, because I have been kind of scrolling through the comments, or I've had glances, whatever else. I do want to thank Rob anyway for kind of coming on, because like, look at, you know, it is kind of what it is and whatever else. But yeah, no, look, it definitely was kind of quite the conversation, as somebody in my YouTube chat has literally just said. It wasn't necessarily like, it was almost the exact same as the last time. Nobody shouted at each other, nobody kind of necessarily talked over. These are the kind of conversations that I absolutely love. So yeah, definitely big thank you to Rob for coming on. I'm going to do a shameless plug. I'm Stephen Ryan Podcast on YouTube. I am about 9 subs away from 1,000. If somebody could possibly go over to my YouTube, get me to 1,000, I love you big time. So yeah, anyway.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You too, man. You too.
And shout out to all of your audience watching and everything. You know, you really do give me a lot of food for thought, you know, and I don't think you probably expected me to come on and not defend Trump as much as,
well,
as you probably, you know.
No,
So,
well,
could be a socialist. So.
Look, that's the goal anyway. All right, that's the goal. That's the goal. But look, anyway, yeah, man. Look, definitely kind of take care. We will talk to you soon, and yeah, best luck with absolutely everything. All right, man.
Thank you so much. Have a good one. God bless.
You too, man.